This is
You'll have to
Larry.
excuse the dogs barking in the background.
That's okay. Well, no problem. This is Larry Spencer, and I'm part of the Retired Faculty Staff PSU 150th Anniversary Committee. And today, on the 11th of June, I'm interviewing Bruce Ritchie. And the question that we usually start out with, Bruce, is what was your time span that you spent at Plymouth? And what position did you occupy during that time?
Okay, I actually have two answers for that. One answer is I started there as a student in the fall of 1967 and graduated in the summer of 1971 in the Centennial class. So I had my 4 years there as a student. Then I came back again to work there in 1974, and I worked through until I believe it was 1997. So quite a while.
And what was the position that you occupied when you first started working for the college?
I was originally hired as a part of the media services department. I was specifically hired to take care of a lot of audio problems and a variety of different kinds of AV issues. Of course, AV was a whole lot different in 1974 than it is today.
Than it is today, that's for sure, right?
Yes.
So who was your who was your mentor at that time, or who was your supervisor at that time?
Well, this goes together with my first answer, the fact that I was there as a student. So when I came back, basically 3-4 years after I left, I knew most of the people there already. But my immediate supervisor at that point was a guy by the name of Tom Goulart.
Okay.
Tom was the head of the media services operation there at the time. And he was also a good friend. I was friends with he and his wife. And so he's the one who basically brought me back on board, so to speak.
Okay, and sort of showed you the what you needed to do and how to go about doing it, and introduced you to the
Funny
other
part was
faculty.
I'd already been doing a lot of that
Already.
I came back. In between times, from the times that I had left until I came back to work, I had worked in cable television, video production, and stuff like that. So I had a pretty good experience, probably more so than a lot of the other people there.
The other question that we often ask is, what was your impression of Plymouth? Now, of course, you have two impressions of it. One, when you came as a student.
Correct.
And two, when you came to be a resident and working at the college. But
correct.
What was your...
Plymouth, I chose Plymouth out of high school because it seemed to me to be a friendly, an easy place to basically, find out the answers to the questions I had, and also a fun place to live. I also liked it because of the fact that the college and the town were roughly the same size. There wasn't this, UNH overwhelmed Durham,
right,
and Keene overwhelmed Keene State. So this was the middle.
Right. So what
So
was it? What was it like in the town when you came? What was the campus like, and what was your facilities like? And
well, when I was a student there, they just opened Boyd Hall, and my offices and facilities were in Boyd Hall when I came there to work. So I was familiar with the building and the places. It was the facilities were adequate for the time. That's kind of the best I can say. I mean, let's face it, technology, which is my area of expertise, has grown tremendously since then, and we're always having to improve things. But my first impressions, everything was what I wanted it to be, and it worked out very well.
Mm-hmm. Now, what kind of interaction did you have with faculty and staff when you?
I was very directly involved with faculty and staff. And in fact, one of the primary functions of my job, as it developed through the years, was working directly with faculty primarily to assist them with the technology that they needed and wanted to be able to use in their classroom for teaching. And as such, I basically worked with a lot of the faculty. I worked with the staff a lot because they were the people who were doing the installations in many cases of the types of technologies that the faculty and staff were using.
Mhm. Now, did you get involved in terms you were when Harold Hyde was,
Yes,
did you get involved in supplying stuff for meetings and things like that, for faculty meetings, staff meetings, or that was it?
absolutely.
Okay.
Faculty meetings were held in Boyd Hall, right behind my office, and I was the guy who would usually set up whatever needed to be set up for those meetings. Also, for a wide variety of other meetings.
Okay.
For example, I was involved for quite a number of the first of the Robert Frost Awards banquets, where I would bring in technology for those banquets, no matter where they were held.
Right. I guess some of those were held down in Manchester or places like
Most of
that.
them were held in Manchester at the time, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So what kind of interaction did you have with respect to students?
Well, uh, because I was dealing with faculty, I was always also dealing with students. As time went on, for example, I would be videotaping students as parts of their class projects. We did a
So,
lot of that type of thing. For example, we did a lot of that with the business department, where basically students would come in and try to sell things to each other
okay.
and learn from those experiences.
This is long before PowerPoint, right? Where students became more
Long before
independent. Yeah, right,
PowerPoint, yes.
right. So, did you, so we mentioned that then Tom Goulart sort of was not only your boss, but also your mentor. Was there anybody that you ended up acting as a mentor to, whether it be a
And
student or a staff member or another faculty person?
I actually had a number of students and well, faculty I worked with all the time, and I kind of mentored them in certain aspects. One who comes to mind would be uh, Wes Dow. Uh,
Uh,
he had his whole Geographers on Film series, which
right,
literally when he started was film, but
right.
through the years it transferred over to video, and that took a lot of work. Another name that comes to my mind was a guy who started out as a student worker of mine by the name of Bob Mahoney. And Bob worked for me for, I think, 3 years as a student worker, graduated, and was so indispensable, I wound up hiring him full time
Okay.
to work with me. He has since gone on to work for, oh God, MIT. He's worked for a number of other places. He runs his own business now,
Uh-huh,
basically.
uh-huh. So, you were there, well, let's say you came in 67 and you left in 97. How did the town change? Well, let's ask this, how did the school change in that time period? And did you see some positive or negative changes in the school?
I saw a lot of positive changes. When I first came, the population of the college was like, I don't know, between 3 and 3,300 students. It's obviously a bit more than that by the time I left. Some of the changes that I saw was a re-emphasis of academics in that, for example, when I first started there was only, well, let's see, Silver Hall, Rounds Hall, Boyd Hall, as far as the really academic spaces. Then we added Hyde Hall. Then we added the the old restaurant, the the place where the art center is now. I'm
Okay,
not sure
right. Yeah,
what they
this,
call it, and a lot of other things like that. The increased and continuous emphasis on education um, and assisting the faculty with that education. It
mhm,
really it grew in that area. The town itself grew not as much, but I think it became more accepting of the students and the college. Um, Things that happened that were cooperative between uh, the town and the college seemed to get a little easier through the years.
now, do you remember who was president when you finished up in 97?
Oh, I'm almost, oh boy, I'm trying to think. I think it was Wharton.
Okay, so
Um,
you went
so I
through
went through quite a few.
quite a few, yeah. And what kind of role did you have any kind of role in terms of staff, I guess you would say, functionality?
down. Um,
And like, were you on any committees, staff committees, or?
I was on a lot of committees. I was
Okay.
on more committees. I worked a lot with them in my role as basically a mentor and expertise on different kinds of technology. Uh, just one example would be commencement. Every year commencement was a big deal, and it required a lot of media technology that that you didn't think about necessarily to start with. But like getting a sound system setting up and having it available to take inside if need be, those kinds of things. I also did a lot of work, for individual administrators on various and sundry projects that they might have that would require photography, videography. Come on, spell it down. Videography, photography, those kinds of things that I was able to provide.
Now, I guess the question I want to mention now is that who are some of your coworkers in the audiovisual other than Tom Goulart?
Several. One who was there even longer than me, I believe was just retired from there not that long ago, was Wally Stewart. Wally Stewart was more of the graphics person. He was more involved in the photography, graphics, helping faculty transfer written documents and photographs into things that they could use in their classrooms. Another guy I worked with for a while was Brian Litchfield. He was there when I started and left a few years later. He was supposedly the television person, although it worked out that I actually had more television experience than he did. And when there was a big shakeup in all of the different areas, he kind of went away.
Okay, I know he moved down to the seacoast and was in
Yes.
rescue or something like that.
Yeah.
What was your impression as to how the students had changed from when you were a student in '67 to when you became a staff person in '70? You said '74, I think. How did you, and when you left in '97, did you see much changes in the nature of the students, or?
Well, I saw a bit more diversity, not just in the students themselves, but in the things that they were learning and the ways that they were learning them. Students tended to, I think, be a bit more focused than they were when I was first there. Probably because they had more choices. They had a lot more choices of both programming and divisions within that programming. So it wasn't just biology anymore. It was individual areas within that biology that the students finally kind of acquired, so to speak.
So in terms of relationships, let's say funding and what have you, what were your relationships with the administration? I assume that Tom must have made some of the the decisions, but still, sometimes some administrators put more money here and some take a little bit of money away. What were those kinds of relationships that you saw during the time that you were here?
That was a tough one. I mean, money was always tight, especially when it came down to the developing technologies. Technology costs money, and it took the administration a number of years to try to figure out exactly how to best apply that that money. We had some definite places where we were at cross purposes. A good example of that is actually it started when I was a student there. The university system funded a quote unquote TV studio in Boyd Hall with the concept that it would be available for distance learning between the campuses. Well, the problem was they spent a lot of money and didn't get a lot in return. And as a result, for many years, I had to kind of keep struggling to put it together. Then the hardest part of the whole thing was when the materials started to deteriorate, age, technology obsolescence, whatever you want to call it. And we tried to get rid of the technology. It was difficult for the administration to understand at the time that this stuff was basically now worthless.
Mm.
So what they had spent, say, a $500,000 on, was now worth a few $1,000s at most.
Because it was just
So
outdated and
yeah, because it was outdated and because it was obsolete in many cases.
right, right.
And not only was it outdated and obsolete, but other technologies were rapidly taking its place.
Mm.
I mean, when I started there, this was long before camcorders, long
Right.
before video phones, long before all of that kind of stuff. Result being that it took some education on the part of the administration to be able to understand that they were not going to get a dollar investment back out of things that they had already put a dollar investment into.
Right. Now, you probably are aware of the fact that your old facility now is sort of an adjunct, I guess you go adjunct office. Has been
Yes.
actually, when they redid Boyd, they cut that room in half, and there's now some space upstairs. And
Yep.
the space behind Boyd Hall that used to be the projection booth and what have you, that's all, disappeared and what have you.
Yep.
And what we have right now is interesting is that there's a room just behind the main desk in the library that has set up with a green screen and
Yep.
also a video camera and a computer.
Oh yeah.
Students can, check, I guess you would say, check themselves into the room, and without too much, to do, they can record their video. And this is what we've been using, to make these interviews with faculty and staff. I
Sure.
think we're up to about maybe 44 interviews with, past
Wow.
faculty and staff. And luckily we caught some of them before they died. I mean,
I know that one.
I
Yes.
mean, the sorry thing, last fall I did with Dick Freilich. You probably remember
Yep.
Dick.
I
And
remember Dick well.
he died this at Christmas time, actually.
I heard
think
about that. Yes,
yeah.
I was sorry to hear that.
So I feel good that I have a recorded interview with him. So
There were a lot of people. There were a lot of people there, faculty and staff, who were good friends of
right.
mine. And I have been kind of watching them through the years and seeing a few here and there pass away and have problems.
Right.
And I'd keep in touch with a couple of them.
And I mean, there's so many new faculty that have come on,
Of course.
I mean, there was a big slug of faculty that I came in 67, which was your first year.
I know. I remember.
And then there was a big chunk of people that came in the early 70s. And of course, most of
Yep.
those people have retired, and many of those
Yep.
people have died. Norm Cote and Ted Giepkowski and what have you.
Yep.
So that's been a real change. Now,
There's a few still around, though. Like,
well, that's for true. Now,
I'm-
in 97, I'm trying to remember, was the campus closed off in the middle of it by that time or not?
It was just starting to be. They had
Okay.
just really started to. They had not made the whole thing a walkway yet. You still had basically, well, you still, I think, have facilities people, physical plant people who could get in there with vehicles. But for the most
Right.
part, it was a walking area only. But one big change between now and then is when they changed the bridge.
Right.
And then they changed the whole access to the campus that way by
Right.
bringing it up, what is it, School Street?
Right.
Yeah. So that
that-
was a big change.
Yeah. Now, I'm trying to also remember, Silvicultural Arts Center had, by your time, had the exit or entrance from the campus itself as compared to the old Silver when you were there, where you had to go down the main street and come to it. And that
Correct.
also made a big difference when they renovated Silvicultural Arts. Now, were you
Oh, yeah.
in any of the planning for the AV and what have you in that building?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I was very involved with the whole Silver Hall reconstruction. In fact, I believe my name is printed in a few places around there. I worked with Charles Combs and I worked with several other people on some of the designs in there for everything from the studio theater to the main theater to a few of the other facilities in there. And that turned out beautifully as far as I'm concerned.
Now, you probably realized after Charles left Plymouth, he went down to Boston and was, I think, a dean of something down in Boston for a while.
Actually, he started out at Berklee School of
Right.
Music as
Yes.
their admissions director, and he and his wife are now still teaching part-time down, though they're mostly retired. And I
Right.
keep in touch with Charles quite often.
Okay, because I've had a couple of messages to and from him. We both sort of grew up in the Bay Area in California, and I guess
There
he
you go.
was born in Richmond. So,
Good.
so what was your, students didn't have their own phones or anything like that when you first started out. By '97, did any have their own phones or not?
It was starting. They were starting to see, individuals with phones. They were still having a problem getting reception.
Right, right.
One of the big problems I remember as a student there was you go to a dormitory, for example, and there would be one television per floor somewhere in the
Okay,
lobby.
right,
Now, the students have full entertainment centers, large flat screen TVs, computers, printers, everything else in their individual dorm rooms.
right. I mean,
Uh,
you probably
Unheard of at the time.
you probably remember you had to go over to the library to use a teletype to go down to Durham when we first came.
Absolutely, I remember that well. Yes, I give you an idea. That goes back a ways.
Right, right. So, and I can
But
remember,
yeah, so
I can remember
go ahead.
too that we had the computing center was in the basement of not Holdorm, but the other one across from Mary Lyons, and
Oh,
I forget what the name of
yeah,
that. I
Blair.
could,
That's
yeah, right.
Blair.
And we could get
Yeah.
the key, and Janice Gleim and I would go over to use the computer and put in the punch
Yep.
cards and what have you. So,
I remember Janice. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. When I was a student there, I was a resident of Blair Hall,
Okay,
so I
so
know the building pretty well. And I also have, well, for example, I've spent time going in the tunnel between Blair Hall and Mary
that's what I was
Lyons.
just going to mention. You could go all the way from Blair Hall to
Yep.
Mary Lyons and all the way down the ad building and over to,
All of the ad building and down to Rounds.
right,
Yes,
right,
I've done that many times.
right. And
I was
speaking of,
also one of the fortunate few who, when I was a student there, I worked for Plymouth as a student
like
worker,
work study, yeah.
like work study, and I worked for a guy by the name of Bernie Sweet,
Okay, I
who
remember
was the
Bernie, right.
director of public relations, and as such, I did a lot of things for him that took me a lot of interesting places on campus, like the Tower of Rounds Hall, for
Right,
example. I remember all the dead pigeons up there.
right. And
Um,
you might actually can do a search right now. There's a lovely video that's been put out about the clock tower and how the clock functions. It just came out within the
I'll
last
have to look that up.
yeah, it just came in out the last couple of weeks, and one of the maintenance
Cool.
workers goes up there and shows us how to reset the clock. And
Yep.
he didn't give us the secret of the pumpkins, but
Yeah, only those of us who know.
right, right, right.
Um, that whole area is, I'm starting to digitize my photographic collection, and as a result, I have a bunch of photos from inside the clock tower
Oh, okay.
and inside the cupola,
Oh,
which is
okay.
a lot of people don't even realize you get to. Honey, down. There's things like that. The other
Well,
thing, you asked a little while ago about changes I've seen. One of the other biggest changes I've seen in the Plymouth area is the loss of the pollution of the Pemmy River.
right.
I
Yeah,
remember when I was first there as a student, you could not see the bottom of the river, even if it was only 3 or 4 inches deep.
right, right. And of
Um,
course, you probably remember some of that came about because of the floods that we had in the mid
yes.
70s. And then also
Oh, I've got pictures of those.
by that time too, the plants up in Lincoln had gone online,
Correct.
and that stopped
Correct.
the influx. But it was
So
really the
yeah,
floods that cleaned out everything. I remember going
it
down
was
there.
it. Oh yeah.
Yeah, you had paper pulp on the bottom of the river that was probably 6 foot deep.
The
And then,
water was blue, not water blue. It was like paper blue.
right, and you could smell it.
Oh,
You didn't have
oh
to
yeah.
see it. Right, right. Uh,
Yes.
so, what are some of the fond memories that you have of having been at Plymouth, both as a student and as a staff person?
Um, a lot of fond memories of people. I had a lot of students who worked for me through the years that went on to do similar kinds of things or different kinds of things. Uh, I had I made a lot of friends with the faculty and staff. I I I saw myself as becoming a resource basically, and as such, it made me feel good to see people picking up on my ideas and running with them and doing
Hmm.
better things with them. Um, uh, just an example there, video in classrooms was a rare thing, a
Hmm.
very rare thing. I think Rounds Hall had a total of 4 VCRs and TVs on carts that they wheeled all to build. Nowadays, every room has some kind of projection equipment, some kind of uh, viewing equipment for not just television, but computers as well.
Right.
Um, Memories of friends. I remember the snack bar when it was in the basement of Blair Hall. Friends and I would go
That
down
was a
there
long
and
time
grab
ago,
a
right?
bite
Yeah,
once in a while.
right.
Um, Long time ago.
So
uh,
is
I also remember some of the stuff that's missing now, like oh, the middle school there that was across
right,
from Rounds Hall.
right.
Yeah,
And that's where most
and
of the geography is
the
located now.
rebuilds of places.
Right. So is there anything
Correct,
that we haven't
correct.
talked about that you
So
want to
you know,
add?
no, I was just going to say the changes were positive. Um, the rebuilding of Silver Hall, the rebuilding of Rounds Hall. Boy, I will tell you, probably one of my fondest memories was the day they reopened Rounds Hall and it had an elevator in it.
Right, right. That made a big difference, right? Not to have to go.
Because I remember running up and down those stairs.
Okay, well, Bruce, I'm going to stop the recording and I'll just be able to chat to you with a little bit. So